She didn't rob me at gunpoint. She just smiled, kissed my cheek, and drained my future one signature at a time. I never imagined a woman who smelled like lavender oil and quoted business books could leave me in thousands of euros of debt. But that's what Leia did, all in the name of a fake dream I was stupid enough to believe in. This is the story of how I fell in love with the perfect scam artist and how it started with one little loan. My name is Julian Marchand, and I live in Lyon. I'm 33 years old, work part-time at a small garage near Croix-Rousse, and do freelance web design on the side to make ends meet. It's not glamorous, but it's enough for rent, groceries, and the occasional splurge on late-night kebabs or a new pair of boots when winter hits hard. I've never been what you'd call lucky in love. My last serious relationship ended when I found out she'd been sleeping with her best friend. After that, I kept things casual. I wasn't about to let anyone mess up the fragile stability I'd finally built. Then Leia came along. We met at a co-working space. I was fixing a bug in a client's e-commerce site. She was giving a presentation on building mindful brands to a group of bored college students sipping oat milk lattes. She had curly dark hair, big brown eyes, and a voice that sounded like a song you only hear at 2 a.m. on the radio. She noticed me, smiled, and said I looked like someone who didn't belong there, which was somehow a compliment. 2 weeks later, we were dating. Leia wasn't like anyone I'd ever met. She spoke about energy like it was currency and believed her skincare line would awaken France's inner goddess. She had notebooks full of branding sketches, supplier quotes from Morocco, and big plans for a launch party in Marseille. The name of her business? Douceur. It means softness. She wasn't just selling lotion. She was selling peace, balance, self-love. She painted such a vivid picture, I almost felt like I was already part of something big. One night, while lying in bed with her head on my chest, she said, "I don't want your money, Julian. I just want your belief." Then she asked me if I'd help her co-sign a 12,000 euro line of credit. It wasn't sudden. She'd been talking for months about suppliers, packaging costs, and a boutique rental she was eyeing near Rue de Brest. She said her father had promised to invest, but then backed out last minute. The bank needed a second name. Just as a formality, I hesitated. I really did. I told her I couldn't even trust myself with money until a few years ago, let alone someone else's project. But she made me feel like I was letting her drown. She quietly, but just enough, said she understood. That maybe I was right, maybe she wasn't meant for anything bigger, and that's what got me. Not the crying, her giving up. It triggered something in me I hadn't felt since I was a kid watching my mother struggle after my dad walked out, so I signed. The first month felt good. She took me to dinner in Vieux-Lyon. She showed me sample jars with custom labels. She even let me taste some hibiscus lip balm that made my tongue go numb. She laughed, said, "That one's still in testing." Then came the receipts. Hundreds of euros for branding sessions, late-night taxi rides, and marketing mentorship with some guy named Fabien who only communicated via Signal. When I asked for updates on the store lease, she said the landlord was dragging his feet. When I asked to meet her partner, a woman named Camille, she said Camille was on a spiritual retreat in the Pyrenees. Still, I tried to stay positive. I helped her set up a landing page. I even built her a Shopify store from scratch and paid for the first 6 months up front. It was around that time my friend Mark started asking questions. Mark and I have been friends since we were 12. He's the type who checks your tire pressure when you visit and reads privacy policies for fun. We've shared everything: beer, bad breakups, even one stupid night where we almost got arrested for trespassing at an abandoned train yard. When I told him about Leia's business, he didn't say much at first. Then one night, over drinks, he looked me dead in the eye and said, "If she's the real deal, why isn't anything in her name?" I didn't have an answer. She always said she'd pay me back once Douceur took off. That the first few months were just planting seeds. That I needed to trust the process. But I stopped seeing invoices. She started being too busy to update me. When I asked for access to the supplier contracts, she told me not to be controlling. And when I looked up the Sire number she gave me for the business, it didn't exist. Not under her name. Not under Douceur. Not anywhere in France. I wanted to believe it was just an admin error. that maybe she registered it under Camille's name. Or maybe it was pending, so I searched Camille, and I found her. She was real, but not Leia's partner. She was Leia's old roommate from Aix-en-Provence. Her Instagram made it clear she hadn't spoken to Leia in over a year. She'd just gotten engaged to someone else. The next day, I asked Leia if we could talk. She said she was tired and had a headache. I said it couldn't wait. When I told her I couldn't find the business registration, she went quiet. Then she said, "Wow. After everything I've shared with you, you still think I'm a liar?" It was the way she said it, like I'd just kicked her dog. I told her I just wanted transparency. She told me I had control issues. That night, she didn't come home. The next morning, she sent a voice note saying she was staying with her cousin in Annecy for clarity and that she needed space from negative energy. My phone buzzed again 10 minutes later. It was the credit card company. 2 payments had bounced. The balance was $11,942.76. I just sat there, staring at the wall of my cramped studio. My laptop, the Shopify store, the stupid jars of lotion I thought were real, none of it made sense anymore. And still, some stupid part of me wanted to believe she'd come back and say it was all just a misunderstanding. But I already knew. I'd been scammed. And the worst part? I handed her the pen. When Leia disappeared, she didn't go silent. She posted. On Instagram, she was healing. Photos of green tea in hand-painted mugs, long captions about boundaries and betrayal, and blurry shots of sunsets with captions like, "Growth comes from pain." And her comments were flooded with women calling her an inspiration. Meanwhile, I was waking up at 4 a.m. from stress nosebleeds and couldn't even get my bank to return my calls. Mark showed up at my apartment with a case of beer and a file folder. "Let's pull her threads," he said. Over the next week, we tracked down everything. Her email aliases, her old Facebook from university, a locked Twitter with the same avatar she'd used on a business card for a retreat that never happened, a Pinterest board full of other people's product designs. Leia Dupuis didn't just scam me. She had a pattern. 4 years ago, she was Manon R, selling digital art classes that vanished after the first payment. 2 years ago, she was Claire L, promising to help women launch coaching brands through her paid mentorship community, none of which ever existed. Each persona had a different email, different website, different dream. She wasn't building businesses. She was building masks. What scared me most wasn't the theft. It was how much I'd told her. My passwords, my insecurities, the way I felt like a failure for not going back to school. The fact that my mother had asked to move in with me when her pension dropped and I'd said no because I was too embarrassed. She knew all of that, and now she was out there drinking matcha, acting like the victim. Mark's cousin Melanie worked for a credit union. With her help, I pulled the application Leia had filed under my name. I expected forgeries. What I found were worse. Full legal documents I had actually signed. She hadn't tricked the bank. She had tricked me into being complicit. She used a prepaid business address in Nice, a phone number registered to a burner SIM. The bank account tied to the business emptied 3 weeks after it opened, around the time she took that fake trip to Annecy. I reported everything. I went to the police with Mark and a thick folder of screenshots, transactions, and her burner emails. They took my statement and said they'd investigate. That word felt like a wet paper towel. No urgency, no updates, no help. A month passed. My debt doubled with interest. My credit dropped 94 points. I stopped checking the mailbox. Every envelope made me feel like vomiting. I wanted to message her, to scream, to beg, but I didn't. Mark convinced me to try something else. "Let's use her own tricks," he said. We created a fake account. The name, Aurélie Laville, a fictional wellness coach looking for a branding expert. Mark made a burner number and used his sister's apartment as the business address on the signature block. The bio was full of buzzwords: self-love, skincare, natural products, crystals, ancestral rituals. It took 4 days for Leia to respond. "Hi, Aurélie. I'd love to chat. I specialize in intuitive brand launches for conscious women. What's your availability?" Mark replied and set a meeting. We used Zoom. I muted myself and let him run it. He shaved, wore a soft pink hoodie, and blurred the background. I sat beside him, off camera, watching her smile through the screen like nothing had happened. She didn't recognize him. She explained how she could bring a soulful edge to the launch and said her process included energetic alignment and targeted influencer outreach. She offered to send a rate sheet, €2,000 for a 2-week consulting package, half up front. Paid by Revolut, Mark asked if she had any references. She said her last project was a full launch in Marseille. She name-dropped a company called Le Jardin de Feu. I knew it. She showed me a logo for it 2 months earlier. That business didn't exist. It was never registered. The website was a template. The founder's name she mentioned? A yoga instructor in Toulon who had blocked Leia on all platforms in 2021. I cracked. I turned my mic on and said, "Funny you mentioned Marseille, Leia. Did you tell them about your boyfriend you left with €12,000 of debt?" Her face froze. Literally froze. No expression. Just silence. She blinked once, maybe twice. Then she clicked, "Leave meeting." Mark burst out laughing. I didn't. I felt sick again. This wasn't revenge. This was desperation. But we weren't done. I still had access to the Shopify store I'd built for her. I redirected the site. The new homepage was a blank white screen with one line of text, "This was built on a lie. Buyer beware." Mark helped me publish a Medium article under a fake name detailing her scam pattern, including screenshots of her aliases and unpaid debts. We didn't dox her, but we showed enough. It gained traction. 2 other people came forward, including a woman who said Leia convinced her to invest in a meditation app that never launched. A week later, Leia's Instagram disappeared. So did her branding site. She blocked Mark, me, and even Melanie. But that didn't stop us. I sent a new complaint to the fraud division of the Gendarmerie, this time with testimonials from her other victims. 2 months passed. I thought nothing would come of it. Then I got a call. "Julien Marchand? This is Commandant Rivière. We'd like you to come down to the station." When I arrived, they had a printed file with my name, Leia's, and 5 other complainants. Someone had tipped them off that she was using her ex's identity to sign contracts in Bordeaux. The fraud division had been tracking her under a different name. She had multiple open investigations, not just for financial fraud, but for identity theft and false business registrations. They asked me if I'd testify. I said yes. I wasn't sure what would happen next. France doesn't have the most aggressive white-collar enforcement, and Leia was slippery. She could vanish again tomorrow. Get a haircut, move to Lille, call herself something new. But I finally felt seen. That night, I slept 7 hours straight for the first time in months, not because justice was coming, but because I wasn't alone anymore. I expected her to come in swaggering, chin high, sunglasses on, with that same icy confidence she used when she told me, "Relax, I've done this before." But in court, Leia looked small, not fragile, not innocent, just plain. No gloss, no curated look. Her makeup was gone. Her clothes weren't linen and flowing. She wore a stiff navy blazer and sat with her shoulders tight, eyes scanning the floor. It didn't feel good to see her that way. I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt tired. There were 6 of us testifying that day. I wasn't first. That was Cécile, a middle-aged woman who ran a handmade soap business in Bordeaux. Leia had convinced her to invest €8,000 into a wellness subscription box partnership that never launched. Cécile said she sold her wedding ring to cover payroll after Leia vanished with the funds. Next was Karim, a software developer from Marseille. Leia had signed a contract with his small agency for an app prototype. She paid the deposit, used the early designs to lure investors, then ghosted him with unpaid invoices totaling over €6,000. When my turn came, I stood up with my folder and my pulse in my throat. They asked for the timeline. I told them about the branding project, the business loan, the €12,000 loss. The prosecutor asked why I didn't suspect anything. I didn't have a good answer. She made me feel like I was building something with her, I said, like I was safe. The judge nodded. He wasn't warm, but he wasn't dismissive either. The defense attorney didn't ask me much, just if I had proof I was coerced. "I have messages," I said. "Recordings, signatures she walked me through." "She walked you through signing your own debt?" he said, almost like a joke. I stared him down. "Yes?" There was a break before the last testimony. In the hallway, Cécile sat beside me. She reached into her purse and handed me a folded flyer, one of the original promotional leaflets for the box she was supposed to launch with Leia. "I kept this for some reason," she said. as a reminder to never trust anyone with a candle logo. I laughed. Genuinely. Maybe for the first time since this whole thing started. When we returned, the last witness stepped up. It was an older man. He didn't say his name at first, just that he was a retired notary from Lyon. Leah had used his ID, his actual government ID, to open a fake consulting business and apply for loans in his name. He only found out when a collections agent contacted him about unpaid debts on a company he'd never heard of. He looked directly at her when he spoke. "You could have ruined me," he said. "But you didn't. I'm just a footnote now in a long list of people you chewed through." Leah never looked up. The prosecutor laid out the charges: fraud, identity theft, intent to deceive, false declarations. The total sum linked to her schemes was over 82,000 euros. But the maximum penalty? Maybe 5 years. Maybe less with first-time offense leniency, even though we all knew she'd just changed names. The judge didn't make a ruling that day. It was a preliminary hearing, a gathering of proof. Still, something shifted. After the hearing, Cécile started a WhatsApp group. She called it Le Survivant de Leah. Within a week, 9 more people joined. 2 from Paris, 1 from Lille, and even a woman in Belgium who said Leah had scammed her out of 3,000 euro for a digital healing course. We shared documents, screenshots, our own horror stories. We started seeing a pattern. Leah always built trust first. A relationship, a business partnership, a friendship. She always appealed to people's emotions. Insecurity, hope, grief. She always vanished right after the first big payment. It wasn't about the money. It was about control. One night, someone in the group shared a YouTube video. It was a TEDx talk titled "How I Found Myself Through Building Conscious Brands." The speaker was Leah, under a different name, Sophie Barre, but the same voice, same cadence, same language. She talked about intuition and redefining success for women, and ended by saying, "Your story isn't what happened to you. It's what you do with it." The comments were disabled. The views? Over 80,000. We reported the video multiple times, but YouTube never responded. Mark told me I needed to focus on what I could control. So I did. I worked with a credit repair agency, sent in 57 documents, spoke to someone at the bank who admitted off record that they'd overlooked several red flags during her application. They agreed to wipe the debt from my report after confirming the business was fraudulent. It didn't refund me, but it gave me room to breathe. I got a side job doing freelance copywriting. Nothing glamorous, but steady. I moved to a cheaper flat in Croix-Rousse and started biking to save on transport. I cut my expenses down and slowly rebuilt my credit. One evening, I met up with Cécile and Karim at a cafe. We sat outside, ordered 3 espressos, and just existed. No trauma dumping. No legal talk. We spoke about books, weather, cheese. It felt like winning. Then a month later, we got word. Leah had accepted a plea deal. She pled guilty to 5 charges, was fined 15,000 euros, and sentenced to 18 months in a semi-open facility. That meant she could leave for work during the day but had to return by night. Mark said it was a slap on the wrist. I said it was something. Before she went in, she posted one last story on her Instagram. New handle, new name, but we found it. Accountability is part of growth. I'm going offline for a while to reflect and reset. Sending love. No mention of the people she harmed. No apology, just vibes. But the silence that followed was nice. Peaceful. A part of me still wonders if she'll come back someday with a new name, a new brand, a new set of half-truths. People like her don't usually retire, but if she does, she'll find us waiting. Not angry, not loud, just ready. They say once you've been conned, you either become harder or go soft in the wrong places. For a while, I wasn't sure which I was becoming. The months after Leah's sentencing were strange. Quiet in a way that didn't feel peaceful at first. Just empty. Like the part of my brain that used to scan for her name in emails, phone calls, invoices, or social media mentions didn't know what to do with itself. I kept expecting her to reappear. Maybe under a different name. Maybe sliding into someone else's DMs with a new hustle about artisan skincare or mindfulness coaching. But she didn't. At least not publicly. It's funny. I used to think closure came from an apology or from seeing someone pay for what they did. But now I think real closure is when their power over you disappears. When their story stops being your story. And slowly, that's what happened. I stopped checking her Instagram. I stopped rereading our old messages. I stopped trying to figure out why me and started focusing on what now. I didn't go back to working with startups. I took a job at a small agency in Villeurbanne. Not sexy work, mostly copywriting for local cafes, nonprofit brochures, small museums needing bilingual guides. But it paid the bills and let me sleep at night. I also joined a support group, not therapy exactly, but a circle of people who'd been conned, scammed, emotionally manipulated. One woman had invested in a crypto project run by a guy she met on Bumble. Another man lost 20,000 euros to a fake charity in Romania. Listening to them helped me stop thinking I was the only idiot who got played. I wasn't alone. Cecile and I still met for coffee every now and then. She went on to start a tiny soap stand in the Sunday market near Place des Terreaux. No website, no partnerships, just her, a table, and about 9 varieties of handmade soaps that smelled like lavender, mint, or rosemary. I bought one every time I saw her. Even though I had a drawer full at home, Karim got back most of what Leah owed him after filing a separate civil suit. He told me the whole thing made him more thorough with contracts. Now he adds an entire fraud clause and requires a video call before any deal. We all adapted, some more quickly than others. I did bump into Mark again, the friend who warned me. He and I grabbed a drink one night, and I apologized for ignoring him back then. He just laughed. You were in love, or something close enough to it. Still felt real, I said. He nodded. That's the thing about people like her. They make you feel like the con artist for doubting them. He wasn't wrong. Months passed. Then one day, something strange happened. I got a letter in the mail. Not an email. A handwritten letter, no return address. Just my name, spelled perfectly on a cream-colored envelope. I opened it and immediately recognized the handwriting. Leah. I almost threw it out. Part of me wanted to burn it just to symbolically close the chapter, but curiosity got the better of me. It wasn't long. Just a few lines. Julian, you were the one I regret most. Not because of the money, but because you actually saw me. And I still messed it up. Don't forgive me. But maybe don't hate me forever. Li folded it. I didn't respond. I didn't tell anyone for weeks. Not because I wanted to protect her, but because I didn't want her to take up any more space in my life. Her words weren't for me. They were for herself. Another performance, maybe. Or maybe she really did feel regret. I'll never know. What mattered was that I didn't feel anything when I read it. No rage, no sadness, just distance. That's when I knew I'd finally moved on. A few months later, I was walking through a street fair in Lyon, sipping a paper cup of cider, when a woman tapped me on the shoulder. Julienne? It was Inés, Leah's old assistant, the one who ghosted when everything unraveled. I've been meaning to reach out, she said. I didn't know what to say back then. We sat on a nearby bench. She told me Leah had lied to her too. Promised her ownership in a wellness app, claimed she had investors from Switzerland, even convinced her to quit her full-time job. She made me believe we were building something together, Inés said, her voice small. I smiled. Not in a smug way, just in solidarity. She's good at that, I said. We ended up chatting for over an hour. About books, documentaries, the rise of influencer scams. Then she said something I still think about. You know, people think scammers are always evil or greedy, but I think some of them are just broken. They just find a way to survive that ends up hurting everyone around them. I didn't know if Leah was broken or just selfish. But either way, it wasn't my job to fix her. It never was. A year after the trial, I submitted a story to a local Lyon newsletter, anonymously, about being scammed by someone I loved. I didn't name names. I just described what it felt like. How it unspooled. How slow the recovery was. It got published, then reposted, then emailed to me by people who didn't know it was mine, saying, "You should read this. It's wild." That was the most satisfying part. Not revenge, not retribution, but the simple joy of telling my story before someone else could write it for me. Thank you for listening. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe for more content. If you want to share your stories, please comment below. Additionally, what is your opinion on the poster's decision?